And welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Buckeye Bugs. That man over there is the Wild Man, Chris Wilds, and you are you, and we're thankful to have you with us as we preview another position group in the Big Ten. This past Sunday, Chris, you, myself, JR, we were talking about offensive linemen, the big uglies.
That's right.
And the Big Ten. And boy, oh boy, it was very interesting where we fell on some of these guys, and the results that came from that were intriguing. How we do this, if you haven't watched the position groups before, after you watch this one, go check out all of our other position group previews. We've done running backs, we've done defensive linemen, we've done linebackers, we've done tight ends. Today, we're talking offensive line.
I don't know, Eric, but all I'm going to say is this. If you go ball on a certain Ohio State guard, cost him that the spot where JR and I thought he should be, we're going to have a discussion off camera.
Okay. We can have it on camera if you want. I ain't afraid of you, old man. Are you ready?
Let's go.
There's a very interesting results. A couple of them I think you're going to be wanting to talk about. All right, Chris. At number 10, Matthew Bedford from Oregon. He has a PFF ranking of 70.7. Chris, you gave him a ranking of 7th. He was unranked with JR and myself, although I did consider him. He's a big boy. He ends up at number 10 on the list.
You know, I thought he was a little bit better than that, Eric, but you know what? I'm not mad about 10. The guy I just thought was a tremendous talent last year on a really, really bad Indiana team. So I thought he deserved a little bit better, but I can live with 10.
All right, number 9. Let's stay out there in Eugene, Oregon. How about Josh Conley Jr.? He has a PFF ranking of 71.3. Chris, you went unranked with him. This is the one I had at 7th. Or excuse me, JR had him at 7th. I had him unranked. And he ends up right there at number 9 with his teammates. So back-to-back, Oregon offensive linemen to start off the top 10 ranking.
Yeah, I considered Josh Conley. But overall, I just felt like Bedford was the better pick to go into the top 10. But you know what? If we would have extended to the top 15, this guy definitely would have been on my list as well.
Fair enough. How about number 8? Now, this is someone who I was really high on. Neither you or JR were. I had him all the way up to 3rd. That's Tyler Cooper from Minnesota with a 71.7 PFF ranking. Again, I had him all the way up at 3rd. You had him unranked. This is a mountain of a man and just another fifth-year senior on an offensive line full of seniors in Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota is going to have one of the, if not the best line in the Big Ten this year. And I think Tyler Cooper is a tremendous talent. Again, if we were going top 15, I would have had him in there. But I just thought there were some better people there to slide into the top 10.
At number 7 is probably considered, although I disagree, the best offensive lineman transfer in the country this year. And I'll tell you why I disagree with that in a little bit. But he has a PFF ranking of 84.5. He's going from New Mexico to Illinois. That's J.C. Davis. Chris, you had him at 6th. Mm-hmm. I had him at 5th. JR had him unranked, although he said he was probably 11th for him. This is one mean dude, and he comes into Illinois. He's immediately the best lineman that the line I have.
Yeah, I really like J.C. Davis. I would have loved to have seen him in a Buckeye uniform, Eric. I'm not going to lie. This guy is mean. He is a mauler. He gets after it. I think he is an extremely talented young man. And let me tell you something, old Birdie over there in Champaign got himself a real gift in this one.
It would not be a Big Ten top 10 offensive lineman list if we did not have someone from the cheese curd state of Wisconsin to have on this list. That's going to be Riley Mahlman coming in at number 6 for Luke Fickell and the Badgers. A 78.1 PFF ranking. Chris, you had him at 5th. JR had him in 4th. I had him unranked. You guys went out. He ends up being 6th.
Yeah, I'm not mad about this spot, Eric. I think, I think he's got a lot of potential. I think he and his cohort there at the left guard are maybe one of the, or can't remember if it was left guard or right guard now that I think about it. But anyhow, they are a great guard tandem. I think they're going to be one of the great guard tandems in the Big Ten. Um, so I really like Mailman. I'm telling you, we're calling the mailman. He's going to deliver.
The reason why I said J.C. Davis was not the number one transfer offensive
I
lineman in
know
the
where you're going
country
with this.
is because I think the best center in all of the Big Ten comes from Alabama to Ohio State in
Yes.
the form of grad senior transfer Seth Mlin. Ignore that PFF ranking of 63.4. I don't know where they're coming from with that. You go back and watch this guy's film from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He was one of the best centers in all of college football. Last year, the snap issues, all the issues in that final game against the team up north in the college football playoff. Again, I don't think it was on him. Chris, you had him at eighth. JR had him at fifth. I had him at seventh. He ends up falling to fifth in this ranking. He's a top 5 offensive lineman, and he's the number 1 ranked center in the Big Ten.
First of all, give up trying to figure out PFF rankings because Pro Football Focus makes no sense.
But when it comes
None.
to
They're
offensive linemen,
ranking,
it's kind of hard to.
it doesn't matter what position they're ranking. They're morons 90% of the time. Complete idiots. Nothing they say or do makes sense. So disregard the PFF ranking. You are absolutely right. This guy is going to be one of the best centers in the game this year. He was playing with a young and inexperienced quarterback last year who made a lot of mistakes, causing a lot of fumble issues. If you go back, you look at him with Bryce Young, no issues.
Mm-hmm.
This is a solid, solid guy. I think he's going to be higher than 5 by the time the end of the season wraps up.
All right, for number 4, let's go out to Hollyweird and take a look at USC's redshirt senior and Jonah Monum.
Monroe.
Um, 75.9 PFF ranking, which is going to make Chris lose his mind. Ranked 4th by Chris. JR and I both had him at 6th. He ends up falling right where you wanted him, Chris. He's your 4th ranked highest offensive lineman in the Big Ten this season.
I can't complain. I think he's an absolute beast out there. I like him at 4.
At number 3 is my favorite lineman in the Big Ten, and if I was drafting offensive lineman, he would be my number 1 pick. And he's going to be one of the reasons why I believe Minnesota is going to surprise a lot of teams in the Big Ten. And of course, I'm talking about Ariante Ursary. PFF ranking of 84th. Both you and JR, Chris, have him 3rd. So which means you guys think he is really good. I think he's phenomenal. I think he possibly could be a first-round draft pick. He ends up sliding to number 3 overall.
I think that he is an absolute beast, a road grader in the run game, which we know Minnesota loves to do. I think we saw at times, a few little bit last year, some issues in the passing game, but I don't know how much of that was him and how much of it was really bad quarterback play. Um, so, yeah, I don't have a problem with this guy at 3. I think you've got an argument that he could be the top guy in the conference.
All right, this was really interesting how this happened, but for our next guy, we got to go back out to Eugene, Oregon for a 3rd time, and we're going to talk about a Johnny Cornelius.
Yeah.
All 3 of us said this guy is the second best offensive lineman in the Big Ten with a 77.9 PFF ranking. Cornelius is going to anchor that offensive line who has, again, 3 top 10 offensive linemen on our list this year in their inaugural season in the Big Ten. One of the reasons why, Chris, I think their running game is probably going to be tops next to the Big Ten or next to Ohio State in the Big Ten. This offensive line is phenomenal.
It is. Oregon's offensive line, make no mistake about it. And JR, I know you want to make an argument about this, buddy, but the fact is, offensive line wise, right now, if I had to choose the best offensive line in the Big Ten, I would go Oregon 1,
Yep. I go Minnesota 2,
Minnesota 2,
Ohio State
Ohio State
3.
3. I think there's potential for that to change.
Mm-hmm.
But Oregon, man, these guys are serious. They are going to be put to the test by the pass rush that they see coming from Ohio State this year. Don't get me wrong. And yes, maybe a lot of those great numbers were produced by bad defenses out in the Pac 12 last year, but not all of them were. Do not sleep on this Oregon offensive line. They are very talented.
Which means number one is 5-star recruit, offensive guard, left guard at Ohio State, Donovan Jackson. PFF ranking's not good. 69.9. Again, it's PFF. I know, Chris. I know. You and JR both said he's number one. I had him at number 4. Let me explain myself for those who didn't watch the show Sunday. I believe Donovan had one of the reasons why he has a really bad PFF grade is because he was having to do the job of not only left guard, but also keep one eye towards what was happening beside him at left tackle, and not to mention a first-year starter at center to his other side, on his right side. There was a lot of times I felt like Donovan Jackson was trying to play the role of both left guard and left tackle. And his game suffered because of that, in my opinion. Chris, looking at hopefully what is a good offseason for Josh Simmons. He's looking good. He's cut some weight, as JR talked about. He's looking very athletic and quick. If he has made the strides that we're hoping he has made, then I believe the number one ranking that you and JR have given him can be justified. But that's a big if, and it's based off of the guy beside him and not himself, which is why I struggle putting him at number 1. So I've explained why I didn't have him there, but I will say he's got the best pedigree. He was the highest ranked lineman in this entire list of guys.
Yeah. I think part of the reason I ranked him at number 1, aside from the fact that I think the numbers support the argument for number 1. Maybe it didn't always look that way on the field, but I think the numbers are there. And the other thing is, Eric, I think that the fact that he overcame what he had at left tackle, the fact that he overcame a first-year center on the opposite side of him, the fact that he overcame Honda McCord at quarterback, I think that really says a lot for the number of sacks that he didn't give up, for the number of rushes that he or hurries that he didn't give up. I think he is actually better, and I think we're going to see him even be better this year because of what he had to do this past season. And I also think that may make him more of a leader on the line because he's not going to allow it to happen again. I think that Donovan Jackson is without a doubt the best talent on offensive line in the conference, not just on the team, but on the conference. Does it translate to a number 1 ranking at the end of the year? I don't know. But I think right now, from everything I've seen, I got to go with him at number 1. Yes, there is a little bit of a homer streak in there. I'm not going to lie. But I think that he's got my benefit of the doubt there, that I do believe that he is going to be, or he is going in and will be at the end of the year, the number 1 offensive lineman in the Big Ten. Just he's just an animal. And I think that Chip Kelly's offensive schemes are going to help him tremendously.
Agree. Could.
And a lot of it's going to be the fact that it's covering up shortcomings in other spots, which allow him to be himself.
I was getting a lot of heat from the chat Sunday night about where I was, who was lacking from my list and where I had the Buckeyes on my list. But let me explain something in all honesty. And I'm going to make a statement, and I think most of you will agree with this statement. If Ohio State goes into Eugene, Oregon and loses, it'll be because Oregon's offensive line outperformed our offensive line to the point where our better players and better defense couldn't make up the difference, which is why I'm still so hesitant to throw my hat in the ring for this offensive line. On the flip side of that, though, if Ohio State goes into Eugene, Oregon and wins, it'll be because this offensive line has improved so much that they are able to run the football and give the quarterback time that he needs in the pocket. And if that happens, watch out, Ohio State is going to a national championship. That's my I hate to boil it down to such a simple statement as that, but I think the offensive line's performance in Eugene, Oregon will tell us everything we need to know about how this season is going to go for Ohio State.
Yeah, and our buddy JR there, and he's not here to defend himself, but had 4 Buckeyes on that list.
Hmm. If he's
Based on what we saw last year, Eric, there's no way you can put those Ohio State offensive
it's not
tackles on
justifiable.
the list. You can't.
Mm-mm.
Now, from everything I'm hearing, Fryer is looking better. From everything I'm hearing, Simmons is in the best shape that he's been in since he's at Ohio State. Like you said, more athletic, looking better. Does it translate into the games? I think we find out, like you said, in Eugene, we find out everything we need to know about this team. Because if they go out there and dominate the way they should, and they win the battle in the trenches, then this is a national championship team without a doubt. Because I'm telling you right now, I don't care what the rankings say. I think Oregon and Ohio State are the 2 best teams in the country. Yes, that's right, Eric. I actually am giving them the credit that you so richly think they deserve.
Who?
Um,
Oregon?
diving in more, I think they are the 2 best teams in the country.
Well, I I agree.
I
I
think
would I
Georgia's
put
definitely in the mix.
I would put Georgia in there, but Georgia's schedule is a nightmare.
Georgia
Um,
has a very, very tough schedule, and I could actually see this Georgia team losing 2 to 3 games.
yeah, it's possible. Um, I think it is still very possible Ohio State and Oregon ends up playing 3 times.
I would
Like
not be surprised.
it's possible.
But
Now,
man, I think they've got to make sure these 2 teams are on the opposite sides of the bracket. I want an all Big Ten national title game. I want it. I can
well,
taste it.
I think the Pac-12 would feel a part of that as well. Like they would still like, even though Oregon's got a Big Ten logo on their jersey, like I think the Pac-12 would be like, yeah, we're there.
The
Um,
Pac 12 is no more.
it
It
is
ceases to be.
there's a
It,
Pac-2. And one day down the road, when there's 24 teams in the Big Ten, there might be a Pac 12 once again in the Big Ten, which is crazy to think about. But all right, guys, that is our offensive line top 10 ranking preview going into the 2024 season. Did we get it right? Do you agree with my Ohio State Oregon offensive line? A lot depends on that game theory. Let me know in the chat. Who did we miss that you think needed to be on this list? Let us know in the chat. Who do we have that's completely underranked or overranked? We'd love to hear from you about that as well. Please like, share, subscribe. It does really help the channel. Please consider being a member if you haven't already. Only $3.99 a month, and there are so many great perks that you would get just for that, including signed memorabilia that you could win in drawings just by being a member, absolutely free to you. Only costs $3.99 a month to be a part of a member. That's all we got for this one. We will be back next week with another preview. We're going to be going back to the defensive side. We're going to be talking about the defensive divas known as cornerbacks. That is going to be a very, I feel, heavy Ohio State list.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's 4 to 5 from Ohio State, and then there's everybody else.
There's a good one that plays in Ann Arbor still. We'll see. We'll see where he ends up falling. Till next time, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH. Sing Carmen High with all your heart. Till next time, OH.
Oh.
Go Bucks.